Hi, I'm Dave Gallagher. We're going to introduce ourselves first. I'm the director and producer of MechWest.
Hi, I'm Noah Gallagher. I'm the co-writer of this episode.
And I'm Clifford Taylor. I am the other co-writer of this episode.
Great. And should probably point out these guys also did some assistant direction, especially with voice direction, but also with some of the design elements for some of the characters and mechs and such.
Yep. What is going on here? It's very mysterious.
Yep.
What a way to start our family-friendly show.
I know. We definitely talked about that quite a bit. The sort of dark and ominous opening to a show that's like, hey, this is fun and for kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do tend to ask the people, my friends and other people, so what did your 5-year-old think of this show, and were they too scared and that kind of thing? And for the most part, it hasn't really been an issue,
Yeah, they handle it pretty well.
So, some of those, when we think about TV, kid TV shows, they tend to be pretty dialed back with violence and danger and all that. When it comes to, animated film, not so much, right? Like there's a lot bigger range of what's kind of considered acceptable for little kids. So I think for the most part our show's pretty digestible for all ages.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe we could talk first about the mechs, the robots, like what was the process. So I mean, initially the concept on my end was, initially it's like that concept of an old cash register and how it would flip the numbers around. And I thought, like, what would a robot look like if it were made in the 1800s, and this is kind of my concept for kind of a silly robot concept for that time period.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the whole idea is to make them kind of sympathetic, right? Make them kind of hapless and cute and not very communicative. And so like a child, I don't know if you'd notice, like a lot of times children in movies are like they communicate too much. And what actual children, like you can ask a question right to their face and they'll look past you and ignore you. There's like this.
Yeah.
It's like they're in their own world, kind of, and I wanted that kind of feeling for the mechs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's there really is no like great way to describe exactly like what conscious level the mechs are, because in a lot of instances I think it was whatever was convenient for the story within within certain definitely existing parameters. But I think like a small child, especially for 6, is really the best way to put like how conscious they are of their surroundings.
Yeah, no, for sure. It took us a long time to narrow down the beginning scenes here, and the result here is so many ideas and layers folded into each other, which is a good thing, but it took a long time to figure out how to begin the story.
Lots of iterations.
Yeah.
Sure thing, Mrs. Samuels.
I worry about transporting.
Yeah, you see the end result, and it all feels kind of obvious. But yeah, man, we did go through so many iterations and how to introduce these characters and how to introduce the world and how to do it all in a few minutes. And definitely watch the deleted scenes on our YouTube page.
Yeah,
it's pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, we put a lot of work into the stuff that's gone, and but this is the best iteration, that the best version of the beginning for sure.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's pretty well paced, I think. It goes by pretty quick.
Yeah.
That mail mech tries to deliver the mail, but he doesn't want the mail.
So many times.
I know.
I remember Greg Melton was wondering like what the idea was behind that. He's like, what does he hate mail?
He hates mail.
Why is he rejecting the mail? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I really understand it even. I think it's more like he's kind of busy and he doesn't really give a lot of stock to what mechs offer, I guess, is the concept there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Mostly it's for
And
a
there's
gag.
a certain yeah, definitely. We love the gag. I think Reed also he's just, he's sort of crotchety,
Yep.
Yep.
Like he's like, male, whatever. I'm just mad because there's a mech.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I remember first seeing this scene was some of the first renders, and they were so amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the props and the environment here. It's so good.
We're out of paper. This is a catastrophe. What could be done?
This really was the first renders, I think, of the show were of that cabinet behind him, the shelves with all the stuff on it, and that's when we started to realize, oh, this is actually going to look really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad this scene ended up the way it is too, and we didn't go with our the 6-minute version that was in the first scripts or whatever.
Yeah. Bless our hearts, we were pretty inexperienced when we started, and
Yep.
and kind of things were bloated basically time-wise, and it really helped us a lot to trim it down to 22 minutes, even though we don't know if it'll wind up benefiting from the TV format to the broadcast television, but it may in the future, and so we're glad. And plus, I think it just makes it very nice, fast pace to the show.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Keeps us from dragging on.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And it's probably also easier on production to know that every single episode is all going to be 22 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I think it was Mahoney Taylor who said we had the outhouse helper joke, but we didn't have it in action until he suggested you can't have the outhouse helper and not show it in action. So we
Yeah.
put that joke in.
Yeah, it's a good point.
This scene ended up really good as well. That's not very interesting commentary, but
Yeah.
I loved this. It didn't change too much, I think, from the first boards. It just got refined, but
Mm-hmm.
this was always
Yeah.
one of the ones that I think we were very confident in.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the very, very few scenes that actually never really changed.
Yep.
Mhm.
A little tiny bit, but
Yeah,
Yeah, mostly
very
toward
very
the end.
little. Yeah.
Yeah, like here when she decides, well, I can't actually take you, which that wasn't our first idea. You can
Mhm.
see the deleted scene,
Yeah.
but yeah, spirit of it is the same.
With the outhouse helper, I don't know if I don't even remember which of us came up with it, but it was just kind of the vibe of the show would kind of be kind of ridiculous, at times, and so I think it's kind of a funny show in a way that it's not really a comedy, but it has kind of silly elements that make you laugh now and then, and that was one of the things I thought would be funny is what's the most ridiculous kind of robot you could have in the Old West, and so that was what we came up with.
Yeah, to show just how poorly these people think of these robotic creatures.
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't
It
know.
certainly doesn't...
Sorry, go ahead.
Good. No, go ahead.
I don't know where the furnace and all the parts are inside this cattle safe. Don't ask us how it all works.
Yeah. Well, that's the beautiful part is that it's just for fun.
Yep.
And we really don't need to think about all these things, and that's I think when I first showed this to my mom, she was asking all these questions logistically. She's like, well, why don't they just have cars, or why don't they do this? And I'm like, that's not the point. It's about being funny and a little bit silly, and
Yeah, most steampunk stuff doesn't get that. Why are they still in Victorian England if they've got a bunch of crazy?
yeah.
Anyway.
It's
Yeah,
about the
obviously
vibes.
it would have changed their culture in ways, but it's kind of like a funny kid imagined version of that, because obviously it would have, but this makes it more fun to maintain
Yeah.
just enough the Old West to still feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because otherwise, if we keep going and going and going, where does it end? We want to have the cowboys and the robots, so there's got to be some
I know.
way to reconcile that.
Right.
Yeah, and like you could do different variations and levels, flavors, but we thought this was a worthwhile one,
Yeah.
worthwhile mix.
Yeah, I like the whole idea of, it's kind of like if you think of like the Flintstones or something, where like, oh, what would a car be like in the Stone Age? Well, obviously, it would be, we have stone wheels, and it's just like a child looks back into the past and they kind of project the present onto it. It's just ridiculous. It's just dumb, but somehow it's so enjoyable. And as a kid, I really liked stuff like Flintstones, where you had that aspect of it. There's a funniness to it. It's like, so I think a kid of today might think, like, what were cell phones like in the Old West? It's that kind of thing where it doesn't make sense, but it's like a fertile ground for imagination.
Yeah. Oh, it was a long time before we had this scene, like a long time before we
Yes.
thought to add it, but it was a great addition. I think some people we showed it to were wondering what happened to the camera mech at the beginning, and we needed a little bit just more drama, foreshadowing and stuff. So that shot of the villain was great.
Yeah, you need some kind of ticking time bomb situation, and we didn't really have it before we had that scene.
Yeah.
Stop it! You have to stay quiet.
Oh, I remember the animation for the hay bale jumps was like, I feel like there was a little bit at the start. There was a little bit of worry whether we could get that to look right, but when I think maybe it was John Luke who animated that, like it worked so well. It looks so great.
I think we went through several animators, to be honest, on that
probably.
scene, because it was so hard to have him look like he was really heavy and have him jump that fast, and I think the storyboard artist made up that joke of him wearing the stuff, and then he raises his hands and it falls off the cowboy stuff.
Yeah.
I think that was all Thomas Levitt, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I want to try and look for your previous owner if he made you this jumpy.
Really, Six should be the one keeping an eye since he has only one.
That's true.
The letters, we could say something about the letters here, about how they talk, and again, like, because it's potentially little kids watching it, we wanted to make it so if you don't see the words, if you don't read it in time and all that, like, it still makes sense. You can still watch it, and from the context you can gather that he says that right now. He says fear and bad men.
Yeah.
But even like if you didn't read it fast enough, you'd still get the idea.
Yeah.
And Pearl protect a minute ago, this is probably the most he speaks in the whole show.
Probably.
Right here.
Yeah. So like, usually some character, usually Pearl, has to, like, if it's really important to know, like, they'll repeat it basically.
Mm-hmm.
We had to make sure reading wasn't required.
Yeah. We should have a joke somewhere in, like, a future episode where, like, a mech falls off a building or bonks its head and then all of a sudden becomes, like, really smart, and it actually is trying to speak these, like, really long, eloquent, like, wise things, but its thing get flip fast enough and nobody pays attention.
Yeah.
That's funny, because I feel like people coming into the project, they expect the mechs to talk all the time, but they don't. And I don't know why, but I think it really works for the show that most of the time they're just mute. They don't say anything. You can see what they're thinking from their body language, and that's enough. And they only really talk when they need to, and that's kind of feels a little bit like children or pets or something too. It has that vibe.
And a lot of it is just because they don't talk because people don't really want them to talk or expect them to talk.
Yeah.
So which again is kind of like maybe children of certain parents who they just you only speak when spoken to.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely seem traumatized, all of them.
Yeah. These night scenes ended up looking really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More violence.
Our guy, yeah. This is
I was hoping it would look more bloody, personally. But,
oh no,
oh well.
someone actually getting slashed with a sword. It's pretty bad. But for some reason, I think the show maintains like enough childlike feel. It doesn't get too dark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our lighting artist, he and a small team rendered the whole show, and he's like, "Oh, is anyone gonna notice this? The star field is exactly the same in all the shots." I was like, "Yeah, whatever."
That's funny.
So, yeah, I don't know if you dear watchers realize this, but it's literally like 100 times less expensive than like a Disney movie or something. So
Yeah.
it's a lot less expensive.
Yep.
And so some of that is just the number of people working on it and the amount of time we had, and also just like administratively, it's just like not very many people kind of in organization. So a lot of stuff went wrong that we're trying to fix now. And as we get through, I don't know, the 3/4 of episode 2 now.
I love that Pico went in there thinking like, oh, I can save the day. I'm a big bad cowboy. When he just gets totally schooled, I think that's funny.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's outclassed.
Yeah, I tend to gravitate more to stories where the main characters are not superheroes, where it's just like they're, in danger. And this kind of felt like that, where Pico, he gave it a try, but he was very outclassed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it's really easy, when you're, making a story that needs to be served by, really skilled fighters or whatever, or if you're doing like an action thing. And it's so funny is how there's always one character who just like can beat almost anyone. And there's not a lot of shows that are, I think, take a little bit of a more realistic approach, where it's, there's like the bad guy that that nobody in the main hero team can defeat is always the scariest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that that's something that we were able to achieve with these bandits, that every time they encounter them, they barely make it out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. There's the third and final mail giving.
Yeah. Delivery.
It was his last act.
Yeah, we have some darkness there where, whoa, is he dead or whatever? But we do tend to bring these guys back, so you find out, oh, okay,
Yeah.
I guess they're okay. They just
Or
have,
it's just another model. Just a different one.
right.
Same model.
You don't really know, I suppose.
Can I have a word?
Read speech. Or we shrunk it down,
Yep.
and then realized like, oh, it really didn't really need to be that long.
Yeah.
He's got the bullet points here. It's all you
Yeah.
need.
But be assured, if those Parisian bandits think they can bully...
There was a bit of wondering whether we'd even have this scene for a bit because of just how many characters
Yep.
it had to have.
Yeah.
But for setting up the future plot lines, we were like, it's got to be here.
I think my favorite
Yeah.
moment of the whole show is when the outhouse helper holds up the pitchfork.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I really love it.
Yep, that was an amazing joke.
And this shot turned out so beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The poorhouse that we never got to see the inside of.
Yeah, it has a great, glorious 4 seconds there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So there's a lot of lore around that house, and there used to be multiple scenes that took place inside of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I still think it'd be fun. Maybe it could have been fun to see like Pearl's bedroom or something, but you only have so many minutes to work with, so.
I know.
Yeah.
And we can always
It really
come
was
back.
a huge... Yeah. It was a huge learning experience, writing this. And man, it's so easy to like watch someone else's movie or show and be like, oh, you should have done this, and you should have done this, and you should have done this.
Yeah.
But really getting down into it and trying to put things together in a way that is elegant and that it's fast
Yep.
and, serves multiple purposes and is still fun and entertaining. It's a lot of work and it takes a lot of skill, and we had to gain that.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah.
It's so true. You just think like, well, you're the guys that made it. Why couldn't you make a scene with her, in her bedroom? Well, after a while, it kind of writes itself because like you have the requirements. You only have so much time, and you have the story you need to tell, and
you stop up one hole and then two more appear. So it's like that kind of thing.
So in a way, you can't do whatever you want. You have to do what the story is demanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say one thing I wish we could have put in was foreshadowing about Six not eating coal. There is that little bit where he says coal ? When she mentions it, but we used to have it where she tries to feed him earlier and you see him kind of like sniff at it and does not like it earlier, but I'm sure it's fine the way it is.
Yeah, I think it's okay.
This scene went through some iterations, and it was like, as writers with maybe a lot of faith in the audience for like a kid's show, like we're like, oh well, it's this interesting situation where Pearl has to like hide the truth, but it just kind of like it just wasn't moving fast enough. So even now, it's like it's probably not the most exciting way to end the episode ever, but it's a lot faster paced and better than it was going to be. So I think it turned out pretty good.
Yeah.
Six from me. I bet they know he's a special mech and came here looking for him. Six is in big danger.
The first draft, she said like, everybody said like the same phrase over and over, like those Parajan bandits.
Oh, really?
And when we finally recorded it and we're editing it, I was like, I can't let this slide. We have to go back and re-record.
Yeah,
saying the same,
I remember that actually.
Same dang phrases over and over.
It is funny how a lot of stuff you don't even notice until you're like well into the thick of it. You're rendering it, you're animating it, and then at that point you're like, let's re-record some of this.
Yep. And thankfully our actors are gracious.
Yes,
they wanted to help us out. So.
They rolled with us on that.
And I think it does work pretty well as an ending, as far as just dramatically wondering what Pearl's going to do next is probably not that difficult a question, but it's interesting. There's drama there, I think.
Yeah.
Can't wait for everyone to get to see episode 2.
I know.
So much happens.
I know.
Yeah, there's a lot in there. It's probably more fun in a way. It's more dramatic. A lot of bad stuff happens.
a lot of bad stuff happens.
But there's some really good jokes in it, and it's fun. It's basically more. Yeah, there's more in it.
Yeah, there's payoff and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, it's basically the other half of this story.
Yeah, there's so much more.
Yeah, it really
to
is. Oh, so much more. So much more cool stuff and more than just cowboys.
Yep.
A lot of people to see.
There's a lot of people involved in the making of that episode.